emergency. You have the air. Shots fired. I think you heard officer shots fired. Officer shots. 3751 South Polk at a 10-1.
Chicago police respond to thousands of domestic violence calls every year. Most of these calls come from Chicago's poorest and most violent neighborhoods. Sometimes these are very volatile situations and can be the most unpredictable and dangerous calls for cops. Since the COVID lockdowns in March of 2020, domestic violence and suicides have skyrocketed, leaving cops to deal with an unhinged, angry society. Sometimes cops are forced to bring in the best, the SWAT team, to resolve these domestic violence situations, and sometimes they end tragically with suicide by cops.
Domestic violence, as we all know, is corrosive to families and communities. We know that violence begets violence. Too many of our young people are growing up in homes where they are firsthand experiencing and witnessing violence. Then within their own communities, they continue to see and experience violence. It's no surprise then that the community areas where we see high rates of domestic violence mirror the same communities where we see high rates of gun violence and other manifestations of poverty and disinvestment.
In the line of duty, cops respond to domestic violence situations damn near every day. It is one of the top 5 most common and dangerous calls for cops here in Chicago. This fatal police-involved shooting took place on September 19, 2021, on the 6500 block of South Harvard Street in Inglewood. Chicago police were dispatched to investigate a domestic violence complaint. When they arrived at the 3rd floor apartment, the door was cracked open, and they knocked and then entered the apartment to talk with the lady that made the call to police about her boyfriend. The lead cop asked her what was the fight about. She explained that he assaulted her while she was doing laundry. She then told cops his name, Terrell Brown, and also told them he has a knife and is in the next room.
Downstairs washing the clothes. He takes the detergent, do like this. I say, stop, hit me out of my chest, and I push him back. He go from that, he was all in my face, punch me all in my side, everything.
Where did he punch you in the side?
All right here.
Do you have any bruises or anything like that?
No, but he put a knife on me too. I want him out of my house, and I'm pressing charges on him.
What's his name?
Terrell Brown, he in the back.
Terrell Brown?
Yeah.
He has to have a knife right now?
Yep.
He has to, like, physically?
Yeah, I want him out.
Stay right here, okay?
The lead cop told the victim to stay in the room where she was and walked into the room and saw Brown with a knife and immediately pulls his gun and backtracks out of the room all the way out the front door, leaving the woman in the room between them and the suspect. The lead cop then calls the situation in to CPD dispatch, and then Brown appears in the doorway with a knife. Both cops started yelling at Brown to drop the knife several times, while Brown points the knife and then waves it through the doorway. Then Brown moved into the room where the woman was hiding in the corner. He had nothing in his right hand, but appears to be reaching for something by the closet as he was creeping closer to cops, and he had his left hand down along his side. At the time, the lead cop opened fire on him, hitting him 3 times, once in the face and twice in the chest. When Brown went down, the knife was found on the ground next to his left foot, and this is consistent with the knife being hidden in his left hand along his side.
Where's the knife at?
Right there by his foot.
The second cop then went in the inner room where Brown laid bleeding and immediately started CPR on him. And the cop that shot Brown just walked around, kind of shell-shocked. Now, we do not know Brown's mental state or if he was on drugs or alcohol at the time. What we do know is he rejected police commands to repeatedly drop the knife, and non-compliance is part of what led to his death. There are a couple things wrong with this shooting. The first thing is the lead cop broke protocol by not interviewing the female victim in a safe area, like the hallway. They should have put themselves between the suspect and the victim, and they didn't. The second thing is, even after cops were told he had a knife, the lead cop went in looking for him, leaving her in the apartment. And when the lead cop encountered him with a knife, he backtracked so damn fast, he nearly knocked his partner over. And the woman was now left in the room between cops and Brown. And when Brown started to move into the room where she was with a knife, Brown did not lunge at cops or the woman, nor did he have the knife up or forward in a threatening manner. And the third thing is, normally one cop would focus on the suspect with his taser, and the other cop would back him up with his gun in case the taser fails. But that did not happen in this case. Had these two cops secured the woman, it would have lowered the threat and urgency to use deadly force. They should have retreated into the hallway with the woman behind them and then tried to de-escalate the situation until the SWAT team arrived, and this did not happen. They felt he was going to harm the victim when he entered the room she was in, and that is why they shot him. He was focused on her, not them. There was no threat to them at that moment. And for these reasons, this shooting has been classified questionable, because cops increased the threat level with sloppy police work that contributed to this man's death.
Running where?
He's running now.
Run.
In the line of duty, cops regularly confront the most evil in our society and are forced to neutralize them. This fatal police-involved shooting took place on November 28, 2016. Cops were responding to a violent domestic battery call on the 4600 block of West Adams Street in the West Garfield Park neighborhood. When they arrived on the scene, they found 24-year-old Ashley Williams with a gunshot wound to the stomach. She told cops her boyfriend shot her and then fled the scene on foot. A short time after Ashley Williams was shot, nearly a dozen cops caught up with 36-year-old Richard Little Earl Grimes about a block away on North Kenton Street. When he was confronted by cops, he opened fire on them. Cops chased Grimes and quickly set up a perimeter and moved in. They spotted Grimes in a gangway on the 4500 block of West Washington Street, and he again fired on them.
Shots fired again. Shots fired. Use caution.
Grimes was eventually cornered by cops in a basement, and they returned fire, shooting him multiple times. Grimes was taken to Stroger Hospital and pronounced dead. Ashley Williams was listed in critical condition at Mount Sinai Hospital, and I am sad to report the bullet fired from Grimes into her stomach killed her unborn child. Days after the shooting, I heard Ashley was still fighting for her life. There were also 2 Chicago cops injured in this incident. One cop suffered a graze wound to the head, and the other injured his leg. A weapon was recovered on the scene, and the Independent Police Review Authority, IPRA, investigated this incident. And a year later, this fatal police-involved shooting was classified as justified.
Let's go. Move your camera with that shit.
In the line of duty, cops protect the public from Chicago's most violent criminals and are sometimes dealt with by the SWAT team. And sometimes a false narrative is created before the body is even cold. This barricade situation started a day earlier in the Inglewood neighborhood. On May 11th of 2016, 3 family members were murdered in a home on the 1500 block of West 71st Street. This started as a domestic violence situation that spiraled out of control, leaving 3 family members dead. The suspected shooter, career criminal, 31-year-old Kevin Robinson, was the ex-boyfriend of 26-year-old Makisha Starks. On the afternoon of May 11, 2016, Robinson showed up at the Starks' home and put a gun to his head, threatening to kill himself and demanding to talk to his ex-girlfriend, Makisha. It was reported he was distraught over their breakup. At some point, he shot Makisha Starks in the head at point-blank range, killing her, and then shot her brother's girlfriend, 26-year-old Kiera Kennard, in the back, killing her too. Her parents then ran out of the house in opposite directions, and Robinson chased her stepfather, 50-year-old Jerome Wright, and shot him in the head, killing him. Robinson then fled the scene in his car. Her mother and the 3 children got away. They were in the home at the time of the shooting and witnessed this tragedy. Less than 24 hours later, the Chicago police caught up with triple murder suspect Kevin Robinson at a home in the Roseland neighborhood at 103rd and Union. When cops surrounded the home, Robinson fired over a dozen shots at cops from the window, and cops opened fire on Robinson, shooting out most of the windows in the home. 5 hours into the standoff, the voice of Robinson's mother blared from a bullhorn, begging him to come out. And no response ever came from Robinson. Throughout the course of the day, the SWAT team fired tear gas canisters and stun grenades into the home. They stormed the house around noon and found Robinson dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. About an hour later, Police Superintendent Eddie Johnson held a press conference and told reporters Robinson was a felon that was convicted of attempted murder, armed robbery, and aggravated battery. Johnson went on to say Robinson served only 2 years of an 8-year sentence for armed robbery. He also highlighted the problem with the criminal justice system here in Illinois and the need for stricter sentencing guidelines. After this press conference was over, I was told there was another one being held around the corner with Robinson's sister. So I started walking through the alley towards the press conference, and I saw Robinson's sister surrounded by who I was told later were 2 community leaders. As I walked by, I heard them telling this distraught woman to claim her brother tried to surrender, and the police used excessive force in killing her innocent brother for no reason. Moments later, she approached the microphone and said this.
That boy ain't do nothing to deserve it. That he tried to surrender. They shot at him like 7 times when he put his hands in the air, told him that he was gonna kill him. He didn't deserve that, man. He tried to surrender, man. First of all, you can't link nobody to no type of murder. This murder that happen out here every single day. He won't
walked in that house and murdered him. He walked in that house and murdered him.
During the press conference, young girls from the neighborhood related to the murdered family called her out and set the record straight. What was now clear to me was, what I was witnessing was how the anti-police excessive force false narrative is created. And it just so happens I found myself in a front row seat during the creation. Even when cops clearly do the right thing, there is always someone that claims otherwise. But this time the facts were in the cops' favor, and the excessive use of force claim was outright rejected by the people of this neighborhood. In the line of duty, cops are sometimes forced to shoot a suspect to save him from himself. This non-fatal police shooting took place in Chinatown on March 13, 2018.
What happened?
Cops responded to a domestic-related disturbance on the 2800 block of South Troop. When cops arrived on the scene, they went up to the second-story apartment and received a key from the man's wife and opened the locked door and found 31-year-old Wen M. Chen covered in blood with a butcher knife in his hand. One cop pulled out his taser and pointed it at Chen and tells him to drop the knife 6 times before finally deploying his taser. Another cop on the scene also deploys his taser, and Chen can be heard screaming in pain. One of the cops pulls out his gun and tells Chen 3 more times to drop the knife. Chen, still screaming, staggers out of the bedroom and into the living room where the cops were. The cop that repeatedly asked him to drop the knife fires his gun, striking Chen in the thigh. The cop fired on Chen because he turned towards him and came within arm's reach with the butcher knife in his hand. Chen was eventually taken to Stroger Hospital and was listed in stable condition. He was later charged with multiple counts of aggravated assault. The cop that shot Chen was placed on mandatory administrative leave for 30 days. I know it sounds crazy, but it looks as though cops saved this man from killing himself or someone else in the home by tasing him, then shooting him in the leg. This non-fatal police shooting has been classified as justified. In the line of duty, cops are sometimes told the truth by the youngest witnesses to their parents' fights. On October 4th, 2021, cops responded to a domestic disturbance on the 7700 block of South Carpenter.
Somebody has a knife? Who has a knife? What is she doing with the knife? Do you know what she's doing with the knife? Who told you to call?
My daddy.
Okay. Where's your apartment at? Number 2, I believe. How about you stay? Can you stay out here for a bit? Just show us where you live. Which room? Which apartment? The second one is the door on this side or on this side?
When they arrived on the scene, a young boy was standing at the front door of the residence. The cop asked the boy, "Who has the knife?" And the boy said, "Mama." He then asked, "What is she doing with the knife?" He did not answer. And then he asked him, "Who told you to call?" The boy said, "My daddy." The boy then tells them which apartment is his, and the cop tells the child to stay out front. The door was open, then they heard fighting, and then the loud yell of a woman. And they rushed in and saw a man lunging on top of the woman. The two then fought on the ground. The cop deployed his taser first. The attacker then went down and started to move up again. And then the lead officer immediately shot him. The woman was checked over and over to see if she was stabbed, but no wound was found. But she had blood on her arms, and there was blood streaks on the wall behind her. And she just laid there and refused to talk to cops. While they were focused on the woman, the man was bleeding out on the bathroom floor. And the knife was found on the floor between the both of them. And the cop picked it up and moved it away. The cop that shot him said the suspect had a knife. And that just might be the case. There are a couple of things wrong with this shooting. Number one, the woman was never stabbed. Number two, the child told cops, Mama had the knife. Number three, the child told police his father told him to call the police. Days later, it was reported that she stabbed him. It was his blood on the wall and on her arms. And it looks as though when the cop came charging in, he didn't take the time to see that the man was taking the knife away from her. He fired his weapon before he could make an accurate assessment of the situation. And her silence, while laying there uninjured, speaks volumes. It is now clear the wrong person was shot in this incident. And for this reason, this fatal police-involved shooting has been classified as mistakenly unjustified.
In a battery in progress at Pacifico gas station, 9155, South Stony Island. Got a male black beating a female white in a red Dodge Charger at pump number 3.
In the line of duty, the most common and dreaded call cops respond to is the domestic violence call. In this situation, the domestic abuse became his own worst enemy, and cops could only watch the situation unfold. On December 24th, 2019, Christmas Eve, Chicago police responded to a domestic violence call at a Citgo gas station on the corner of 92nd and Stony Island. The clerk at the gas station witnessed a 40-year-old black man driving a red Dodge Charger beating up a 28-year-old black woman in the gas station. Then he called police, and a squad happened to be right around the corner when the call was broadcast by CPD, and the cops immediately tried to pull over the red Charger as it left the gas station. The driver refused and hit the gas and fled from cops. As he was fleeing, the woman can be seen trying to exit the moving vehicle. Cops gave chase but quickly lost sight of the Charger. Moments later, about a mile away, the Charger crashed at 91st and Crandon into 3 parked cars. 2 Dodge Chargers and a Nissan SUV and a house were all severely damaged. The man was ejected from the car and was killed, and the woman was listed in stable condition. In the police report, the man was listed as drunk and was traveling at around 100 miles per hour in a residential neighborhood when he crashed. The woman would make a full recovery, but the man set his own destiny in motion when he started hitting that girl and then fled from cops. It ultimately cost him his life, and the cops could do nothing but watch the whole thing unfold.
Free David 55, you're going to 63rd.
Give me the 1 by 4 City, first shot.
First shot, okay.
In the line of duty, sometimes cops do everything they can to de-escalate a volatile domestic violence situation, but fail. Then the SWAT team was called in to end the Barricade situation. On April 3rd, 2022, cops responded to a domestic disturbance on the 4200 block of West Ford City Drive. When they arrived, they made their way up to the second floor, knocked on the door, heard voices, and then entered the apartment and found a 48-year-old woman on the living room floor suffering from a gunshot wound to the neck.
Are you shot?
What's his name?
Frank Campbell.
Frank Talbot?
Campbell.
Campbell?
Yes.
Frank Campbell.
Immediately after finding the wounded woman, 58-year-old Frank Campbell opened fire on cops.
How many rooms are back there?
Campbell!
What?
There's 3. I think he shot my dad too.
You shot your dad too?
Yes.
Frank Campbell!
There's an adult male down.
Frank Campbell, show me your hand!
Hey, which room would he be in?
He might be in the second room.
On the right?
On the yes, on the left. On the right side.
Frank Campbell, show me your hand!
Shit! Shot one! 10-1!
Shots fired at police! Shots fired at police! Shots fired at the police! Show me your
They
fucking
quickly
hand.
retreated to the hallway and did not fire back at the suspect, and decided instead to pull the woman caught in the middle to safety. And she told them there's another man shot in the back part of the apartment where the shooter is.
He shot twice!
There's an adult male, he's like 50s.
There's somebody else down in there.
We don't know yet.
Shots fired at the police. Shots fired at
Cops once again made verbal contact with the shooter, and for over 25 minutes they tried everything they could to talk him out, but they failed. Cops now knew her 78-year-old father was shot and taken hostage by Campbell and was in the back part of the apartment.
Frank, put down the
Campbell had now turned this into a barricade situation, and because of this and the wounded hostage being held, SWAT moved in, and they tried to talk him out. And after a short period, Campbell made the mistake and opened fire on the SWAT team, but they returned fire and killed him and rescued the hostage.
on you, brother. Shots fired. Get up. Take this, take this.
Got a med pack.
There should be, watch out, watch out. There should be another victim in there.
Okay, Fort City, shots fired by the police, 10-4.
What do you got? What do you got? Up there.
Shots fired by the police, 4260 West Fort City at the SWAT incident, 4260 West Fort City
He shot him,
Drive,
so I'm
Fort
just
City
observing
Drive.
it.
Shots fired by the police.
Got wounded? You got him?
Yeah,
I got him.
Don't send any cars over here. Don't send anybody on squad.
Disregard the 10-1. No additional cars to respond to 4260 West Fort City Drive. No additional cars to respond.
The father and daughter were both taken to Christ Medical Center in critical condition. Sometimes when all else fails, force is the only way to resolve these violent situations. And that's why SWAT is the last resort. Since the pandemic lockdowns, domestic violence has more than doubled, and the number of orders of protection jumped 55%. And in 2021, there were 151,000 reported domestic violence incidents across Chicago.
In regard to domestic violence, it's not lost on me that women, and more specifically, black women and women of color, have borne the brunt of this crisis.
Guys,
And this has been going on for decades and is partially responsible for the massive breakdown of the family structure in the black communities across Chicago. In the line of duty, cops on the ground heavily rely on the eyes in the sky while tracking down fleeing criminal suspects.
Yeah. He just crashed. He's going to spin out. He's probably going to bail. Yep, he's passengers out, drivers out.
In December of 2018, cops ran the plate on a vehicle that came back stolen. They activated their lights and the vehicle sped off. They gave chase, and soon after, CPD dispatch terminated the chase. And then dispatch turned it over to PH1.
Yeah, they're starting to split up. They're both in the alley. If there's an officer running eastbound in the middle of the street, your guy's right in front of you.
Tell that squad coming out of the alley to go to the next alley north.
A squad in the alley, go to the next alley north.
While PH1 was shadowing the car, the suspects crashed into another parked car, and then the pair bailed and took off on foot. PH1 turned on their infrared tracking system and tracked the two suspects as they fled through the backyards and alleys of Inglewood. PH1 guided cops on the ground right to one of the suspects. The driver was taken into custody in an empty lot at 71st and May, and the other jacker was caught a short time later, 3 blocks away.
1233.
There is more to this story. When the cop was chasing the driver, he got close to him at a fence, and the suspect tried to take the cop's gun, and during the struggle for the gun, it discharged. Luckily, the suspect never gained full control of the gun, and no one was shot in this incident. This incident could have ended much differently if the suspect would have been hit by that bullet. It would have become a big problem for the cop because he did not have his body cam fully activated.
I think 71st.
I could see the headlines now. Cop shoots unarmed suspect in Inglewood. And what if he had killed him? He would have become the next Darren Wilson. You see, there are unforeseen circumstances that surround incidents like this.
All right, this guy's still in the alleys working his way,
No guns were found on either suspect or in the
There are
car.
2 squads in the middle of the street right there. He's going to come out on you on your right-hand side. The 3 squads.
The driver was charged with trying to disarm a peace officer and other felonies. And the reason why he fled from cops was because he had an active warrant. And the result is he compounded his problems. And the passenger was charged with criminal trespass to a vehicle. The reason I focused on this incident is to show the public just how fast incidents like this can escalate and spiral out of control for cops on the bloody streets of Chicago.
1 male, black, about 6 feet tall, had a black jacket and blue jeans.
Roll him over.
You have no description on the other one?
I don't get nothing. You shot?
422, Robert.
22, we're Alpha.
431, Robert, can I take the
Fuck, grab my gun.
Who grabbed your gun? This guy grabbed
Yeah.
your gun? When did this
Well,
happen?
we're hopping. I let it round loose. That's why I'm asking if he shot.
Okay.
PH1 and PH2 have become very important tracking tools when hunting for suspects on the run. The helicopters are now the pursuers of fleeing suspects. The choppers have replaced police vehicle pursuits due to violent crashes like these, where people were killed. In 2023 and 2024, 3 more helicopters will be added to Chicago's fleet. 2 additional choppers will go to the CPD, and the third one will go to the Cook County Sheriff's Department. When I was around 5 years old, I used to go with my mom and my aunt to Rainbow Beach, and then we would go to the Strip on 71st Street. I used to love riding the train up and down the Strip. They would shop at Woolworths and other stores. It was, in fact, public transportation that made South Shore one of the largest shopping districts in Chicago. South Shore and the wealthy Jackson Highlands have a long history, starting with the World's Fair in 1893. A lot of the fabulous architecture was built for the World's Fair, and most of it remains today. From the early 1900s, the area was predominantly a white community, and by the 1960s, many whites left the neighborhood for the new suburbs, and many professional blacks moved to South Shore. Some were cops, doctors, lawyers, bus drivers, and city workers, and many whites in the Jackson Highlands stayed, and South Shore became one of the best functioning diverse neighborhoods in the city of Chicago. This quickly changed by the late 1990s, when the projects were torn down and the residents were spread out all over the city, and many people from the projects were placed by the city into the South Shore neighborhood and many other neighborhoods. A short time later, South Shore became the subsidized public housing capital of Chicago, and the gangs that were birthed in the projects moved in and took over. And they brought drugs and crime and quickly destroyed this once beautiful, properly functioning neighborhood, and a section of South Shore became known as Terror Town. And South Shore regularly makes the list of the top 10 most violent neighborhoods in Chicago.
As he became combative, flailing away, he broke free from the officers and what they thought he appeared to be reaching for a weapon.
Police shot. Shots fired at the police. Or police officer. Shoot.
In the line of duty, cops are sometimes seen as an invading, occupying force when they hit the streets on foot in large numbers. This fatal police-involved shooting took place in the business district on 71st and Chapel in the South Shore neighborhood. A large group of cops on foot patrol were sent into the business district of South Shore because of a recent rise in crime. This incident started while cops were on foot patrol and encountered 37-year-old Harith Augustus. The cops stopped him because they saw he had a bulge on his side that cops claim resembled a gun. They asked him for his ID, and he complied and reached for his wallet and started to pull out his FOID card to give it to the cop in front of him, when suddenly things took a turn for the worst, when a female cop came up behind him and aggressively reached out and lunged at Augustus's arm that simultaneously pulled away and down from her hand, looking as though he was reaching for his gun. He then pulled away and spun around while multiple cops were trying to grab him, and that's when his shirt rose up, exposing his holstered weapon and multiple magazines around his waist. He then ran out into the middle of the street and spun around once again, except this time he pulled the gun out of the holster, and at that exact moment, one of the cops opened fire, killing Harith Augustus. I have many questions about this shooting. Number one, why did the female cop startle him from behind and lunge for his arm? Her actions were not warranted at the moment. Her actions immediately put him on the defensive because I'm sure he felt he was under attack by cops, and that's what I believe triggered him to start reaching for the gun. And this was done while the cop standing in front of him seemed to have the situation under control, talking with him in what appears to be a non-confrontational manner. The cop did have his gun drawn, but it was pointed down along his side. Augustus did comply until he was grabbed from behind. I wonder what was going through his mind at this time. He had 5 cops surrounding him. One cop in front of him had his gun drawn, and the female cop came up from behind, and then they all tried to grab him. The CPD's de-escalation policy doesn't look as though it was applied in this case. I guess we'll never know why he did what he did. Immediately after the shooting, the female officer that grabbed his arm seemed to be in shock and a bit dazed after the outcome. It was later confirmed that Harith Augustus was shot 5 times, once in the back of his head, once in his shoulder, and multiple times in the stomach. He died at Jackson Park Hospital. And the most important question I have is, why did he choose to take on 5 armed cops? This could have ended differently if he told cops, I have a current FOID card, but do not have a carrier's permit. Had he done this, the cops would have taken his gun away, and he would have been charged with a minor gun charge. The sad truth is, Harith Augustus was carrying a gun to protect himself from criminals in the neighborhood he worked in. It wasn't to protect himself from cops. Had he felt this way, this incident would have never happened the way it happened. Harith Augustus worked as a barber in the South Shore neighborhood for years and was known as Snoop the Barber. He worked at the Sideline Studio Barber Shop on 71st Street. He was described by one guy that knew him as being a quiet guy. He said, I never knew he had a voice. According to the CPD, Harith Augustus had no recent criminal background, just a minor offense from when he was young. Days of violent anti-police protests followed the shooting of Augustus. At least 12 people were arrested for assaulting cops with bottles and rocks.
Augustus's death sparked violent protests in Chicago Saturday and more demonstrations on Sunday, even after the 30-second video was released. The Chicago Police Department has been under fierce scrutiny over its policing in Black and Latino communities. This marks the 3rd time in the last 2 weeks that a Chicago police officer shot someone.
This department is not fixed. This department is racist. This department is unconstitutional, and we're tired of it.
Because Harith Augustus pulled his weapon on cops, this shooting has been classified justified, with a strong question mark on CPD's de-escalation procedure in this case.
Police shot. Shots fired at the police. Or police officer.
Over the past 20 years, more and more men are running away from cops with guns, and they are getting younger and younger. This has become a big problem for cops, forced to stop these young men running with weapons that kill. Taking these weapons away should be the #1 priority. It is to cops, but not the political leadership and their failing justice system. Even the public acts like it is no big deal to run from cops with a gun. Their distorted view is, if they don't fire or point the gun at cops, they should not be chased down by cops trying to take their guns away by any means necessary. Less and less of these type of incidents are happening because the court's view on gun offenders today is like a simple battery charge from 20 years ago. They keep letting them out in electronic monitoring and are now judging these cases based on compassion and not the law. And due to this position, it has stopped a lot of cops from doing this part of the job.
When they're not backed up, they're doing just a little bit less work because they're in fear that they're going to lose their house, they're going to lose their life, they're going to go to prison for some frivolous cases. They call it, right now in Chicago, they call it the Chicago lottery. Every time a cop does something, someone sues the city of Chicago, makes millions of dollars because the city doesn't prosecute anybody. They just settle the cases.
Let me see your fucking hands! Put your fucking hands behind your fucking back! All right.
Some of these tragic situations can be laid directly at the feet of lawmakers, because enforcement and punishment for gun offenders are all but disappearing from the landscape of policing in Chicago due to them and their policies. Some of these police-involved shootings are a product of a weak justice system that refuses to punish these offenders with stiff punishment-based deterrents. Their failures have now expanded and are now endangering more cops and the public all at once. And the crime wave is now being really felt throughout the city. And now no one is safe from the system's manufactured crisis here in Chicago.
You know he's probably dead, but just watch him. I got a taser right here, all right?
Last night in Humboldt Park, a 7-year-old boy was fatally shot in his home while washing his hands. In Greater Grand Crossing, a 15-year-old boy was fatally shot while walking down a residential street.
The men and women of the Chicago Police Department regularly face violence on a scale most cannot comprehend. And it is the toughest part of the job. But what I believe profoundly affects them are the deaths of young children and young teens. From 2019 to 2022, young men, mostly gang members, have been gunning down kids and teens at an alarming rate here in Chicago. Kids from newborn to 12 years old, 39 were shot and killed, and 189 were shot and wounded. Teens 13 through 17, 490 were shot and killed, and 2,163 were shot and wounded. The sad truth that cops are forced to face every year are the ever-changing names, faces, and grieving families here in Chicago. Over the years, I have watched the men and women of the CPD work these scenes, one right after the other. And it is clear to me this is part of the job they could absolutely do without. The psychological changes that come along with this part of the job for cops can be deeply troubling for some.
Extremely saddened to share with you today the loss of a respected member of our command staff to suicide. I, along with the entire Chicago Police Department, grieve the loss of Deputy Chief Dion Boyd, a respected command staff member and 30-year veteran of the department.
And I believe incidents like these could be partially responsible for some of the many suicides by Chicago cops suffering from one form or another of PTSD. And this is also because of the many unforeseen, tragic, and demanding aspects of this tough job. A total of 7 cops committed suicide in 2022. And in this same year, 3 Chicago police officers died by suicide in 1 week. And over the past 5 years, 23 Chicago police officers died by suicide. According to the Justice Department, the Chicago police suicide rate is 60% higher than the national average.